It's not a fact.
Good evening, Earth. This is Adam Sturch podcasting from the Mushroom Mansion, Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting orange, or starting the oil painting orange, which will be the second in the secondary triptych. So I just got some nice cadmium yellowish, orangish, white, red, pale cadmium, kind of an orange sherbet color looking kind of glaze to start with a background, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Through me, through my funny form, and mocking it and turning it into a grotesque action, you really get the sense, which if I have been a big sober presence, you get stuck with the image.
There's a wonderful story in some African tradition of the god who's walking down the road, and the god has on a hat that is colored red on one side and blue on the other side. So when the farmers in the field, go into the village in the evening, they said, "Did you see that fellow, that god with the blue hat?" The others said, "No, he had a red hat on." They get into a fight.
He even makes it worse by first walking along this direction, then turning around, turning his hat around so that again it'll be red, black, or whatever. And then when these two chaps fight and are brought before the king or chief for judgment, this fellow appears and he says, "My fault, I did it. Spreading strife is my greatest joy."
And there's a truth in it.
It sure is. Yes.
Which is?
No matter what system of thought you have, it can't possibly include boundless life. And when you think everything's just that way, it comes in, it all blows, and you get the becoming thing again. Now, Jung has a wonderful saying somewhere. Religion is a defense against a religious experience.
Well, you have to explain that.
Well, that means it has reduced the whole thing to concepts and ideas. And having the concept and idea short circuits the transcendent experience, the experience of deep mystery is what one has to regard as the ultimate religious experience.
Well, there are many Christians who believe that to find out who Jesus is, you have to go past the Christian faith, past the Christian doctrine, past the Christian church. And I know that's heresy to a lot of people.
Well, you have to go past the image of Jesus. The image of God becomes the final destruction. Your God is your ultimate barrier. This is basic Hinduism, basic Buddhism. The idea of the ascent of the spirit through the centers, the chakras as they call them, or doxas, the different centers of experience, the animal experiences of hunger and greed, or just the zeal of reproduction, or physical mastery of one kind or another. These are all stages of power. But then when the center of the heart is reached, and the sense of compassion on another person, mercy and participation, and I and you are in some sense of the same being. This is what marriage is based on. There's a whole new stage of life experience opens up with the opening of the heart. And this is what's called the virgin birth, actually the birth of a spiritual life in what formerly was simply a human animal, living for the animal aims of health, progeny, wealth, and a little fun. But now you come to something else, to participate in this sense of accord with another, or accord with some principle that has lodged in your mind as a good to be identified with. Then a whole new life comes, and this is, in Oriental thinking, the awakening of the religious experience. And then this can go on even to the quest for the experience of the ultimate mystery. And this ultimate mystery can be experienced in two senses. One, without form, and other with form. And in this Oriental thinking, you experience God with form here. This is heaven. That's the identification with your own being, because that which God refers to is the ultimate mystery of being, which is the mystery of your being as well as the world. So this is it.
How do you explain what the psychologist Maslow calls peak experiences and what your friend James Joyce called epiphanies? I love that word, epiphany.
Oh, well, they're not quite the same.
I know.
The peak experience, it refers to actual moments of your life when you feel that this has told you something. Something has come through in your experience of your relationship to the harmony of being. It can come, my peak experiences, I mean the ones that I knew were peak experiences after I had them all came in athletics.
Which was the Everest of your experience?
Yeah. Well,
which one was it? Was when you were running at Columbia?
yes, of course. And I ran a couple of races that were just beautiful. And the whole race, I knew I was going to win. And there was no reason for me to know I was going to win because I was touched off anchor in that relay with the first man 30 yards ahead of me. And I just knew it was a peak experience. Nobody could beat me today. That's the kind of being in full form and really doing it. I don't think I've ever done anything in my life as competently as I ran those two races. And those consequently were the experience of really being at my full and doing a perfect job. I don't think I've ever had anything like that, that I really came up to anything quite that way.
Do you think you, Joseph Campbell, it has to be physical?
No, but it can be a peak experience. There are other kinds of peak experiences which I know were superior to those, but those are the ones that, when I read Maslow and read the peak experience, I just know that those were peak experiences.
What about James Joyce's epiphanies?
Now that's another thing. This has to do with the aesthetic experience. Joyce's formula for the aesthetic experience is that it does not move you to want to possess the object. That he calls pornography. Nor does it move you to criticize and reject the object. That he calls didactic, social criticism and all that kind of thing. It is beholding the object. And he says you put a frame around it and see it as one thing. And then seeing it as one thing, you become aware of the relationship of part to part and part to the whole to the parts. This is the essential aesthetic factor, rhythm, the rhythmic relationships. And when a fortunate rhythm has been struck by the artist, that is the radiance, that's the epiphany. And that is what would be the Christ coming. Do you understand what I'm saying?
The face of the saint beholding God.
And it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, you could take someone who you would think of as being a monster. That is an ethical judgment on the life. And this is transcendent of ethics, no didactic.
See, that's where I would disagree with you, because it seems to me in order to experience the epiphany, that which you behold but do not want to possess must be beautiful in some way. And a moment ago when you talked about your peak experience, running, you said it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful is an aesthetic word.
That's right.
And how can you behold a monster?
I tell you, there's another emotion associated with art, which is not of the beautiful, but of the sublime. And what we call monsters can be seen as sublime. And they represent powers too great for the mere forms of life to survive. Prodigious expanse of space is sublime. This is a thing that the Buddhists know how to achieve in their temples. Particularly when I was in Kyoto, I was there for 7 glorious months.
In Japan.
Yeah, visiting some of the temple gardens. They are so designed that you're experiencing something here, and then you break past the screen and a whole new horizon opens out. And somehow with the diminishment of your own ego, the consciousness expands. This is the experience of the sublime. Another experience of the sublime is not of tremendous space, but of tremendous energy and power. And I have known a couple of people who were in Central Europe during the saturation bombings that were conducted over those cities. And there is you just have the experience of the sublime there.
I once interviewed a veteran of the Second World War, and I was talking to him about his experience at the Battle of the Bulge with the assault of the Germans about to succeed. And I said, well, and you look back on it, what parts of it? He said, was sublime.
And so the monster comes through there.
What do you mean by monster?
Well, by a monster, I mean someone who breaks all of your standards for harmony and for ethical conduct.
Is there a story in mythology that illustrates the sublime in the monster?
Well, the god of the end of the world, Vishnu at the end of the world, is a monster. I mean, he's destroying the world, first with fire, and then with the torrential flood that drowns out the fire and everything else, and nothing's left but ash. The whole universe has been wiped out. That's God.
Well, the Christian millennialists talk of the rapture.
Well, read chapter 13 in Mark.
It says,
That's the end of the world. You see, these are experiences that go past ethical judgment. Ethics is wiped out. Our religions, with the accent on the human, as I mentioned in a while ago, also stress the ethical. God is good. God is horrific. The end of the world. There's an Arab saying that I read somewhere in the Arabian Nights that the angel of death, when the angel of death comes, is terrible. When he has reached you, it is bliss. Now, in the Buddhist systems, particularly as we get into Tibet, the Buddhas appear in two aspects. There's the peaceful aspect, and there is the wrathful aspect of the deity. Now, if you're clinging to your ego and its little world and hanging on, and the deity wants to open you, the wrathful aspect comes. It seems to you terrible. But if you are open, and open enough, then that same deity would be experienced as bliss.
well, Jesus talked of bringing a sword, and I don't believe he meant that in terms of using it against your fellow, but he meant it in terms of opening the ego. I came to cut you free from the binding ego of your own
This is what's
self.
known in Sanskrit as viveka, discrimination. And there is a Buddha figure called Manjushri, who's shown with a flaming sword over his head. And what is the sword for? It's to distinguish the merely temporal from the eternal. It's the sword that distinguishes that which is enduring from that which is merely passing. The tick, tick, tick of time shuts out eternity. And we live in the field of time. But what is living in the field of time is an eternal principle that's reflected this way.
What's the eternal principle?
But one.
Which is?
Well, we call it God, but that personifies it, you see.
It is the experience of the eternity.
Yeah.
The experience of the eternal.
As what you are,
Yes.
I would say.
That whatever eternity is here right now.
And nowhere else, or everywhere else. If you don't experience it now, you're never going to get it. Because when you get to heaven, that's not eternal, that's just everlasting. Heaven lasts a long time. It's not eternal, it's everlasting.
I don't follow that now.
The eternal is beyond time. The concept of time shuts out eternity.
Time is our invention.
Our experience. Yeah. But the ultimate, unqualified mystery is beyond human experience. It becomes inflected. As they say, there's a condescension on the part of the infinite to the mind of man, and that is what looks like God.
So whatever it is we experience, we have to express in language that is just not up to the occasion.
That's it.
It's
That's
a
what poetry's for. Poetry is a language that has to be penetrated. It doesn't shut you off. It opens. It's the rhythm, the precise choice of words that will have implications and suggestions that go past the word is what has to happen. And then you get what Joyce calls the radiance, the epiphany. The epiphany is the showing through of the essence, what the Aquinas called the quidditas, the whatness. The whatness is the Brahman.
Why do you think it is there is in so many people this deep yearning to live forever, to secure my place in heaven?
When you realize what heaven is, in the works of such a person as Thomas Aquinas, it is the beholding of the beatific image of God, which is a timeless moment. Time explodes. So again, eternity is not something everlasting. And you can have it right here now in your relationships. I've lost a lot of friends.
Right along, baby.
My parents
Quite
and
done
all.
time yet. Give me a few minutes.
And
Would you set
the
up?
realization that has come to me very, very keenly is that I haven't lost that. That moment when I was with them had an everlasting quality about it that is now still with me. What it gave me is still with me. And there's a kind of intimation of immortality in that. Do you see what I mean? Now, there's a wonderful work of Schopenhauer's. He says, when you reach a certain age, and he wrote this when he was in his 60s or so, and look back over your life, it seems to have had an order. It seems to have had been composed by someone. And those events that when they occurred seemed merely accidental and occasional and just something that happened, turn out to be the main elements in a consistent plot. So he says, who composed this plot? And he said, that just as your dreams are composed by an aspect of yourself of which your consciousness is unaware, so your whole life has been composed by the will within you. Then he says, just as those people whom you met by chance became effective agents in the structuring of your life, so you have been an agent in the structuring of other lives. And the whole thing gears together like one big symphony, he said, everything influencing and structuring everything else. And he said, it's as though our lives were the dream of a single dreamer in which all the dream characters are dreaming too, and so everything links to everything else, moved out of the will in nature. It's a beautiful idea. It's an idea that occurs in India in the image of what's called the net of Indra, or the net of gems. There's a net of gems where every gem reflects all the other ones. And they also have the idea of the spontaneous and simultaneous arising. Everything arises in relation to everything else, and so you can't blame anybody for anything. It's all working around all this idea. It's as though there were an intention behind it, yet it all is by chance. None of us has lived the life that he intended.
And yet, we all have lived a life that had a purpose. Do you believe that?
I don't believe life has a real purpose. I mean, when you really see what life is, it's a lot of protoplasm with an urge to reproduce and continue in being.
Not true. That's not true.
Well, no, wait a minute. Just sheer life can't be said to have a purpose, because look at all the different purposes it has all over the lot. But each incarnation, you might say, has a potentiality, and the function of life is to live that potentiality. Well, how do you do it? Well, again, when my students would ask, should I do this, should I do that? Dad says I should do this. My answer is, folly or bliss. There's something inside you that knows you're in the center, that knows you're on the beam, that knows you're off the beam. And if you get off the beam to earn money, you've lost your life.
So it is not the destination that counts, it's the journey.
Yes. There's a wonderful old man, I think he's still alive in Germany, Graf Durkheim. And he says, when you're on a journey and the end keeps getting further and further away, then you realize that the real end is the journey. So this is it. This moment now is the heavenly moment. And
I like the idea that Eden was not, Eden will be.
Eden is. The kingdom of the Father spread upon the earth, and men do not see it. I mean, Eden is.
There's some image of Shiva, the god Shiva, surrounded by circles of flame, rings of fire.
That's the dance of the world, the dancer whose dance is the universe. And in this hand, he has a little drum that goes tick, tick, tick. That is the drum of time. The tick of time which shuts out eternity. And we are enclosed in that. In this hand, there is a flame which burns away the veil of time and opens us up to eternity.
Babble, babble, babble.
And in his hand is a skull and the new moon, the death and rebirth, the same moment, the moment of becoming.
That's a powerful image for any life.
Well,
If you do,
the goal
or you come dinner
of
time.
your quest for yourself is to find that burning point in yourself, that becoming thing in yourself, which is fearless and desireless, but just becoming. This is the condition of a warrior going into battle with perfect courage. That's life in movement. A plant growing, I think it's grass, you know. Every 2 weeks a chap comes out with a lawnmower and cuts it down. Suppose the grass would say, for Pete's sake, what's the use? It's the coming in being, it's it, and that's the life point. And that's what these myths are concerned to communicate to.
But I've always interpreted that powerful, mysterious statement, the Word was made flesh, as this eternal principle finding itself in the human journey.
Yes.
I don't know what the Word is. I don't even know what flesh is. But I know that there is that experience of epiphany when you meet what you don't know and understand it.
Yeah, and you can find it yourself too, the Word in yourself.
Where do you find it if you don't find it yourself?
Well, Goethe says, all things are metaphors. Alles Vergängliche ist nur ein Gleichnis. Everything that's transitory is but a metaphorical reference. That's what we all are. And to see the Word, we're getting back to that, your radiance that we spoke of before comes out here again now.
How does one worship a metaphor, love a metaphor, die for a metaphor?
Well, that's what people are doing all over the place. That's what people are doing all over the place. Dying for metaphors. And when you really realize the sound Om, the sound of the mystery of the Word everywhere, then you don't have to go out and die for anything, because it's right there all around. And just sit still and see it and experience it and know it.
Explain Om. This is the first time you've used that.
Well, Om is a word that, say, represents to our ears that sound of the energy of the universe, of which all things are manifestations. And Om is a wonderful word. It's written A-U-N. You start at the back of the mouth, ah, and then U, you fill the mouth, and E closes at the mouth. And when you pronounce this properly,
3 minutes.
all vowel sounds
Shit.
are in that.
Kind of like to put a little more red into that. but Eidolon's about to pop her head off. It's almost dinner time, and she knows it. So I
All
suppose...
words are thus fragments of Om, as all images are
There's
fragments
not
of a
much.
form of
Honestly,
forms.
I could let that set up before I do another layer. That's not bad.
And so Om is a
Okay,
symbol,
I guess I'll cut it here.
symbolic sound.
That's a nice thick first layer. Gives you some good setup facture, setup for facture, and some really nice rhythms, I think. So that's it for the moment. Thanks for watching. That's Adam Sturch broadcasting from the Mushroom Edge in Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting orange, second in the secondary triptych. Eidolon says hello. Have a good night, Earth.
That's the zoom of being in the world.